Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different to what you're used to me doing most of the time. I just wanted to go through an idea that I've had for a while for something to do on the channel, and I figured, hey, now's as good a time as any, so why not? And the idea pretty much boils down to going through various things I own and just talking about it. I wanted to have it sort of as just a bit more of a laid-back idea of a video I can throw out every now and then, something I don't have to script or go out and shoot, because as much as I love doing bigger projects like the Depression music videos or the Expression series and other stuff that I've done, it's a lot, and I don't always have the appetite for that sort of stuff. And this sort of video allows me to do something quick and, like I said, more laid back. I don't have to get all pretty for the camera for you guys, and I don't have to write anything or anything. I will have notes for a lot of these videos, but I don't have to write a script in advance. I'm just here at my table. I've got my tea. I've got a candle going, and yeah. You saw the title. Obviously, you know why I'm here. I wanted to talk about Atari games, of which I've got quite a few, and that's not all of them. But wait, there's more. That is all the Atari games I own for the 2600 system. This is 19 games, if I remember my count correctly. I'm not gonna double check that count. I don't really care that much. But the exact count of the games, you can count them right here if you'd like to. I believe there's 19 of them. But these are all of the Atari games I own, and I just want to sort of talk about them briefly and just go through them. So I will do that. So first up is Missile Command. Now, Missile Command is a very fun game. I have played probably more hours of this particular Atari game than I have dozens of other ones. It's a game that's gotten a pretty high amount of play out of me. It's simple. If any of you have watched my a very old video now, but a video on my old channel where I covered the Atari 2600 as a whole, I showed some gameplay of this game. And anybody who's been in a arcade with any old arcade games will recognize Missile Command. It is a staple of 80s arcade gaming. You control missiles, you command them, you might say, and your objective just boils down to shooting down ships and other missiles that are incoming from space, and trying to protect these cities that you have down on the ground. And it's just a high score based arcade game, and it is very, very fun. So I recommend this game if you have a 2600 or just in an arcade with one. Absolutely go play Missile Command. It's a blast. Did I say blast? Well, I meant Laser Blast. Laser Blast is literally just a Missile Command clone. Like, you can actually see pretty well just looking at the label there. Like, that is pretty blatantly just Missile Command, but not really. I don't really remember this one super well, honestly. It's been quite some time since I've played it, but I don't remember it being bad. Laser Blast, yeah. So, for the Atari, released both Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, and I gotta say, if you're gonna play one of the two, this is the one to go for. The 2600 version of Pac-Man just kind of reeks, man. Like, it's not good. You ever look at, like, something that's molding on the side of the road, some, like, I don't know, fucking cantaloupe that somebody dropped, and you're like, damn, man, that really blows. And that's how I feel when I look at Pac-Man for the Atari, because, man, this game just fucking looks like shit. Now this is like if I took shit and then spray painted it green. It looks a little better, I guess. It's not stellar, but it is definitely a far better port, and it is way more playable, way more enjoyable. If you're looking for Pac-Man, this is how you go for it. Another Activision release here, we've got Sequest, which if I remember correctly, I'm going off the top of my head here. I don't have notes for this episode. Sequest, no, this is not what I was thinking of. I was thinking of, what the hell am I thinking of? There's those 3 Atari games. It's like an air, land, and sea thing, and then they had these big old, they were competitions, I remember. It was like Air World, Sea World, or whatever, and then you got these big prizes for beating them, and it was like a gold chalice, a crown, and then I think there was a sword, but the sword was never awarded because the last game never came out because of the video game crash. And that sword I don't believe has ever been found, if I remember correctly. I think that's what I was mistaking the title for. Sequest is an entirely different game. This is unrelated to what I was talking about. It's just you're a submarine and you blow stuff up. It's a fun, that might be a stretch, but it's a moderately entertaining high score based game. It's not bad. I don't know how to pronounce this word. I think it's Berserk or like Berserk. I listen, man. I read books. I don't know how other people say stuff. I read it, and that's how I pronounce it for the rest of my life. Berserk is very, very fun. It's based off the Atari arcade game of the same name. This is a classic case of an Atari game, especially the 2600 era of Atari games, but an Atari game having far too cool of a box art thing for it, because man, that looks so much cooler than the actual game does. Berserk's kind of lame, honestly. Like it's visually, anyways, very lame, like most 2600 games. But this is fun. It's high score based as well. You are romping around, and you've got some robots, some bobots to blast into, and they talk in the original arcade release with some digitized speech. I don't believe they talk in this version because it's on the Atari 2600, but again, it has been probably like a solid 2 years, or like a year at least, since I played any of these Atari games. So off the top of my head, I do not remember if they talk, but I remember this game being up there with Missile Command as one of my more played games for the system. These are definitely up there as 2 of my most frequently played games. Berserk is very fun. Pick it up if you get the chance. So we're going to get into some sports titles here, and there's quite a few of them, and I'll just kind of, I believe these are all the sports titles I have. Yeah, these are all the sports titles I have, being ice hockey, basketball, and boxing. So we'll look at the 2 Activision releases first. Just bear with me a second. But ice hockey and boxing. These are 2 incredibly janky ass games, but there's some fun to be had in that. If you like, there's a picture here of when I was hanging out with my friends in my basement. I want to say that was probably the last time this Atari was played, a good year or 2 ago. But playing these shitty ass sports games that I feel would have felt janky even some 40 years ago was a friggin' blast, man. Like, the amount of fun you can have just fooling around with stupid bullshit is massively overlooked. You don't need a good game to have fun. You just need friends, or like a good sense of humor. Like, one or the 2, or if you're lucky enough to have both, is all you need to have a great afternoon with absolutely not good games. Like these games, boxing especially. Boxing friggin' sucks, man. Like this game, this sucks. It's top-down perspective. It's friggin' like boom, 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 boom. It's just whoever can mash the button quicker while happening to be lined up with the other person's face wins, and that's it. And it's friggin' stupid. Ice hockey is slightly more game feeling and less random nonsense. If you've ever played that random like old iOS game, I remember it used to be available for like the iPod Touch, and like I think it was also on the iPod Nano, I want to say. But the one where you had the neon glow hockey or whatever, this fundamentally works the exact same way. It's just presented in a different way, and it comes with that classic Atari stank to it. But it's fun. It's stupid and bogus, but very fun. So points in your category, Ice Hockey. Also, something I want to mention is I like how the Atari, or the Activision releases have these little notches on them. They they slot together. Like, those are locked in there. That's cool. I like that they do that. It's like, oops, but like, see, I can do that. So, can Atari do this? Huh? No, I didn't think so. Basketball, we're left over. There's not much to show you here. It's kind of that early Atari generic packaging, and I just had to put a label on there when I got it because it was missing it. But basketball, and I'll put some footage on screen, is also a great example of that classic Atari jank I mentioned, but it has the same stupid fun quality that the other two sports titles do. It's just, it's basketball. That's pretty much it. If you've seen the movie Ready Player One, and this should look pretty familiar to you. Adventure. You're a square. You got shit to do. That's the game. It is yet again a case of some banger art on a game that is, you're a square and you got shit to do. But like, damn if that doesn't look friggin' awesome. This is, nowadays, I feel, mostly just well known as, yeah, it's the game with the first ever Easter egg hidden in it, or it's the first open world game ever. No, it's not really either of those things, because I mean, it somewhat could be considered open world, I guess. It still has a limited map. It's just, it's larger than most Atari games and lets you free roam a little bit more than most Atari games, but I wouldn't really consider it open world per se. Man, I got those vascular coal miner hands today. That's wild. And I don't believe it's the first game to ever have an Easter egg either. If I remember correctly, it is just the first game to have an interesting Easter egg, being the lead programmer's name hidden within it, and that being that of Warren Robinett, who wanted more credit since Atari developers at the time were not given individual credit for their games and stuff. You've heard all of this nonsense if you've watched the movie or read about it, but he wanted his name in it. His name is in there. You don't need to beat the game to find it. You just need to bring this invisible nonsense somewhere else and move stuff over, blah, 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 bring it to a certain spot, do a bunch of random useless garbage, and then bang, created by Warren Robinett is on the screen. I've done that once before. After doing that and also beating the game on the regular standard difficulty, it kind of loses a lot of its replayability, replay value to anybody born within the last 30 years, because you're a square and you got shit to do. It's fun once or twice, but this does not have a lot of replay value. It's kind of like a less interesting version of the first Legend of Zelda game, and that's that. So, I have Breakout. I don't have paddle controllers. This was a gift from my dad, I believe. He found it somewhere, and I used to play a version of Breakout on his BlackBerry smartphone like 15 years ago, I want to say, and that was awesome. I friggin' love Breakout in any version of it. I've not ever gotten to play this, so I don't really have a lot to say about the 2600 version because I've never played it. But if it's like any other clone of Breakout, which I assume it is, this fucks, man. I love Breakout. Space Invaders, I'm pretty sure everybody knows. Space Invaders is a classic. It was released in 1978 by Taito. It's a very solid port of Space Invaders, and there's not a hell of a lot to say about it. It's Space Invaders. You know it. You blast the aliens. I crush the alien. Defender. I don't really remember what this game is. I think it's the one where you're the spaceship, you kind of go side to side and you can change directions and you blast shit. I don't really remember. If it is that game, then I remember it being fun but kind of confusing as to what I was meant to do initially. I remember it being fun but initially very confusing, which obviously would be rectified when this game was new because you would have had the manual with you. I don't. So I don't. I remember it just being like, well, what the hell am I meant to do? And then that's that. What game comes to mind when you think Atari? Bet it wasn't fucking Donkey Kong. When the Atari 2600 came out, Nintendo did not have a video game console on the market. Like not like a proper video. They had like some plug and play consoles and stuff, but they didn't have a proper system floating around because this was released in 1982, and this is a ColecoVision compatible game, which is interesting. So that's why it looks totally different, and it's by Coleco. So you can put this in a ColecoVision and it will play Donkey Kong. And you can put this in an Atari 2600 and it will play Donkey Kong. It's Donkey Kong. It's Donkey Kong with the side of Atari jank. It just looks kind of chunky and moves a bit clunky. It's like if you recreated Donkey Kong from memory after having not played it for like 25 years. You'd end up with this. Where it's like, that's Donkey Kong, I guess. I know that Kong. That's Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong, and that's the game. It's Donkey Kong. Anybody who knows a little bit about the Atari 2600 knows E.T. It is often hailed as the worst game ever made for the system, and is like blamed for the entirety of the '83 video game crash. That's a whole bunch of horse bollocks, but only kind of. It's not responsible for the entire video game crash. Obviously, no one game is responsible for that. A shit ton of terrible games coming out at the same time were all responsible for that, because nobody wanted video games anymore, because all the video games were trash. That's why that happened. However, don't think you're innocent, little guy. This game stinks. It's confusing, it's not fun, it's clunky, and it looks bad. So yeah, obviously this game fucking sucks. It's not, people exaggerate, but they're not lying. The game isn't good. I do think at least that like the art on the front looks nice. I mean, I think it's just painted over of a frame, a still from the movie, but like it looks good at least. Now honestly, I probably should have paired this with Space Invaders. That would have made more sense. It's another classic arcade game from the time that got adapted into a 2600 version. It's Asteroids. Asteroids is also up there with Missile Command and Berserk as some of my more played games on the system. You could probably also put Space Invaders up there. Like, I've played a pretty decent amount of Space... Oh, I just dropped stuff. But if you wanted to be, like, very specific about it, you could put this lineup so far as my most played Atari games. Asteroids is simple. You got the little ship going around, you gotta blast the asteroids and clear the screen of all of them. But when you shoot the asteroids, they split into little pieces, and there's more stuff on the screen to avoid. There's other hazards like other ships and stuff you got that will shoot you and stuff like that you gotta avoid as well. But it's a simple game. It's addicting and fun. It's a high score based arcade game of simple stuff, and that's what makes that's its merit really. Yar's Revenge. I don't understand this game. I first played this game on like one of those NOAC plug and play Atari joystick consoles when I was like, I don't know, maybe 9. I didn't understand it then. I don't understand this game now. This is the kind of game I feel that requires a instruction manual, because I have no idea at all what you're meant to be doing in this game. It's confusing to me. I don't get it. I could definitely look it up or something, but I feel like part of what makes a game fun is it being intuitive. Pitfall. I have played so much of this game, and man, I suck at it. I have never ever been good at Pitfall. I'm dog shit at platformers in general, and I am especially bad at ones with the, say it with me now, Atari jank. This comes with a decent amount of that. But I have played so much Pitfall, and I like how there's a little screenshot of the sort of gameplay on there. Pitfall, definitely up there in the stack of games that I have played a ton of. I love Pitfall a lot. You're Pitfall Harry. You gotta go through the jungle. You gotta do stuff. You gotta avoid the crocodiles and the scorpions, and you gotta go over the friggin' pits and whatnot. And you swing across the friggin', that's Happy Wheels. But you gotta go across the things on the vines, like Indiana Jones, Temple, Crystal Skull, and stuff. And like it's very cool. Very good game. Pitfall. Yeah. Whew. We're down to the wire here. The last 2 games. I'll just cover them at once. Combat is a variety pack sort of game, which is pretty well represented by its cover art here being split into 4 sections. But it's essentially just tanks fighting each other, or planes fighting each other, with a couple gameplay variations. But that's essentially what it boils down to, and it's multiplayer, which is fun, and I think its simplicity and it being a sort of multiplayer party game really end up being its biggest strength, because of it has a lot of replay value because of that. The tanks mode on here, to those of you who are roughly the same age as me and were growing up in the Wii era, may actually find it very familiar because of Wii Play. And the tank minigame in Wii Play. And the tank minigame in Wii Play is essentially just the tank mode from Combat on the Atari. It's functionally, for the most part, the exact same game. So I think that's kind of cool, because it's... I mean, you know a game's good if it's in Wii Play. Have you played the one with the cows? Last and almost certainly least is Astro Blast. I don't know why the fuck it's shaped like this. It's made by Mattel, so it might be I don't know what the Mattel console at the time was. It was like the Intellivision, I want to say. It might be cross compatible with the Intellivision, and that would explain why. I think the Intellivision goes in the side actually, but I think it's cross compatible with the Intellivision. I remember it being vaguely Space Invaders, Laser Blast-esque kind of game. I don't remember. I remember that it sucked, though. It's not good. It's a shitty game. Kind of a sucky note to end on, but that's Astro Blast. So, in summary, out of my 19 Atari games, my frequently played games boils down to 5 of them. And, I mean, hey, to be perfectly fair, it 100% would be 6 if I had the paddle controllers, because, man, I fuck with some Breakout. But, no. So, out of the Atari games I have, this really boils down to all the ones that I actively ever play. It's just these 5. And say what you will, that's not a bad lineup, though. Like, that's a stellar lineup of games. You can get several hours of entertainment out of just this. But man, when I paid like $200 for an Atari after saving up for a while, when I was like 13, I kind of hoped to play more than 5 games on it. But to quote Scott the Woz, if you're in the market to play some stellar Atari games, what's wrong with you? Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in with me and just kind of listening to me ramble about Atari games for the last, I don't know how long, probably at least like 10-15 minutes, but I'd be actually stunned if I got 10-15 minutes of material out of this. But yeah, so thank you. I'm just going to probably do this, not weekly, but just sporadically anytime I feel like, hey, there's something around here I want to talk about, like this fucking wheel. Yeah, and I'll just ramble about it for however long, and I'll probably just, this will be covering a variety of stuff. You might have me cover other video games. You might have me cover like a DVD or like a fucking action figure. I don't know. I'll just cover whatever comes to mind. Hell, I do this long enough, I'm going to start reviewing AA batteries. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.